that history.
Right.
Because you know why? They took it out. The church took it out because they didn't want us to connect the dots.
Never put my trust in a pig-eating pastor. Never kept the Sabbath, but he looking for the rapture. Studied for myself, had to read through the chapters. I left the Christian church and caught ghosts like.
Let's connect the dots. Give me how they were Hellenized. Now we're going to read. Why did they take that part out? Read.
The book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 6, verse 6. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient feasts or to profess himself at all to be a Jew.
So, under the Greek rule, those who were Israelites, it was illegal for them to profess themselves to be a Jew. They couldn't keep their laws and customs. And you know what would happen if they were found keeping them? They got put to death. So if you fear for your life, would you keep calling yourself a Jew? Or would you now say, I'm a Greek? Common sense, you would say I'm a Greek, right? So, go back to Romans 1 and 16. Now we're going to find out who were the Greeks that Paul was talking to. Was it everybody, or was it a subset of Grecians that had lost their heritage through what? Through being colonized, conquered, slavery, which we know is the history of so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Read.
The book of Romans, chapter 1, verse 16. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ.
Hold on. He said he's not ashamed. Hold that. Give me Isaiah 45:17. Let's see what he's not ashamed of. Because Paul was a Pharisee of the Pharisee. Meaning what? He was raised up in the law. And then once Christ taught him, it connected all the dots. Paul was a bad boy when it comes to the scriptures. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
He knew the scriptures front and back. So he's actually quoting Isaiah when he says he should not be ashamed. Read.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 45, verse 17. But Israel shall be saved in the Lord with an everlasting salvation.
Did that say everybody or did it say Israel? Okay, it said Israel, right? The Israelites shall be saved in the Lord with an everlasting salvation. How long is everlasting? It's forever. It doesn't end, right? Read.
Ye shall not be ashamed.
Whoa! When it comes to God blessing the Israelites with that everlasting salvation, what did God say?
Ye shall not be ashamed.
We can't be ashamed of that.
Right. That's right.
I can't be ashamed that the Lord, our God, chose us to be special to him.
Right.
That's like your child should not be ashamed if you buy them some Jordans, but the next kid doesn't have. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You provided that. Don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed that I'm teaching you these things and I'm building you up.
Right.
We can't be ashamed of that. Right? Go back to Romans. So now we know he's talking to Israel. We're not to be ashamed of the gift God gave us, which is everlasting salvation.
Right.
The book of Romans, chapter 1, verse 16. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first.
To the Jew first, because Christ taught the Jews first. When he was alive, that's who he taught. But then he said, you know what? Now it's time for me to go and teach the Gentiles amongst the Gentiles. Talking about what? Northern Kingdom who lost their heritage. Because remember, they were under persecution. It wasn't lawful for them to even say shalom. You know what I'm saying? Most High Christ, they would be put to death. Right? So it was to the Jew first, a Jew like Paul, a Jew like Peter. These are the ones that Christ taught first, and then who?
And also to the Greek.
So it says also to the Greek. But it wasn't talking about all the Greeks. It was talking about what? We just read it in the books that they took out of the Bible, the history that was missing. And it's talking about the Jews who now had to conform to Greekish fashions.
Shalom, Israel. This is Bishop Nathaniel. I want you to know that you can view all our Sabbath classes live on IUIC TV. That's right, I said on IUIC TV. Download the app today. Shalom.
What's your nationality? Right. You're Hispanic American, right? How? Hispanic means property of Spain.
Right.
Amerigo Vespucci was an Italian explorer that named his continent after him.
Right.
So how is that the case? Because it's the same thing that happened to them. It wasn't lawful for them to keep their heritage, and under rule and persecution of death, we weren't allowed to keep ours.
Right.
You couldn't say, my name is Mr. Israel. They said, no, your name is now Hernandez, Cortez.
Right.
That's what they said your name would be now. They changed everything. Just like my last name used to be Johnston. I'm from North Carolina. There's a Johnston County. Guess what county in Plantation my family comes from? Right there. Because they denoted their property by naming them. Look, Africa. Is Africa a continent of dark people? Mostly?
I got it.
It's mostly a continent. Well, now it's mostly. But historically, it's a continent of dark people, right? Then why is it named Africa? After Scipianus Africanus, who was an Italian explorer. They name everything after themselves. Read.
The book of Psalms chapter 49 and verse 11. Their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever.
So, the so-called white man, the Caucasian, he thinks his rule is going to continue forever. But we know things are going to come to an end. The Greeks, they fell. The Romans, they fell.
Right.
Babylonians, they fell.
Right.
Hell, even us as a nation of Israel, we fell.
Right.
Guess what? We're going to be the only ones to rise again.
That's right.
After that, it's an everlasting kingdom that won't go anywhere.
That's right.
And their dwelling places to all generations. They shall call their lands after their own names.
So who is this? God said these people will be your enemies, and they're going to call all the lands after their names.
Right.
Who is that? Because China was never called the land of China. That's the land of Moab.
Right.
Japan was not the land of Japan. It was the land of Ammon. Africa was not. That was the land of Ham. But now it's being called Africa. America was called Arsareth, but now it's being called America.
Right.
And only one group of people renamed it. So, who are the chosen people and who is the enemy of God? I didn't write this Bible. None of us wrote this Bible. Yeah, go ahead.
This is the definition. This is the Zionism Bible Dictionary. I'm gonna read this for you, just to compliment what I was saying. Hellenists, Jews who made Greek their tongue and with it often adopted Greek ideas and practices.
What does that mean? They couldn't keep their own laws and customs. They even did what? They stopped speaking Hebrew. That's why the Hebrew you hear now is Yiddish.
Right.
You understand? It was made up by who? A so-called white man. A so-called Jewish man.
Right.
Right? Because you gotta think, what does the suffix ish mean? If I say your shirt was blackish, what does that mean? Kinda, sorta. Why would a group of people say they're Jewish? They're telling you right there.
Right.
We're kinda, sorta, but we're not the real deal.
Right.
Right? Matter of fact, give me that in Sirach 36. I think I want verse 9 first. We're going to see, because if they were the real Jews, which is the head tribe, the same tribe that Jesus Christ came from, if they were the real Jews, when the real Jews wake up, they are moved to do one thing and one thing only: wake up the rest of their brothers.
Right.
That's the spirit that the Lord put in them, right?
The book of Sirach, chapter 36, verse 9.
Bring it out.
Verse 10. Smite and sunder the heads of the rulers of the heathen.
Who are the rulers of this world? What people? Who runs the banks? Who runs the politics? Jewish people, right? So it just said the rulers of the heathens. And what do these Jewish people say? Read.
Smite and sunder the heads of the rulers of the heathen that say, there is none other but we.
They said there is no other chosen people of God but we. If that's the case, because the word Jew comes from, is short for Judah, right? Why is he saying there's only we, but God said he has 11 other tribes?
Right.
Where are the other tribes at?
You know?
You got brothers and sisters? If they were lost, what would you do for the rest of your life? you would try to find them. That's common sense. So that's how you know they're not the people of the book. People of the book would do what? Keep reading.
Gather all the tribes of Jacob together, and inherit thou them, as from the beginning.
Because if you were the people of the book, he would gather the 12 tribes together as from the beginning. Because a lot of people think, oh, if I say I love Jesus and I'm saved, Christ is going to come. No. Judah got to wake up, gather all the tribes, make sure they know the law, statutes, and commandments, have the faith of Christ, repent. Then that's when our salvation will come.
What is a nation? Nation is family. Nation is community. Nation is men leading by example. Nation is women's support. Nation is children with role models.